This is a reading from the poem The Man God by Marie Valtorta, Volume 5, Episode 599. It's a long chapter, so we're going to do it in increments. The Agony and the Arrest at Gethsemane. It was written on the 10th of February 1944. Jesus says, "And now come. Although this evening you are like one who is about to breathe his last, come, so that I may lead you towards my sufferings. Long is the way that we shall have to cover together, because I was not spared any sorrow, neither the pain of the flesh, nor the grief of the mind, of the heart, of the spirit. I tasted all of them. I fed on all of them. I quenched my thirst with all of them, to the extent that I died of them. If you laid your lips on mine, you would taste the bitterness that they still retain of so much sorrow. If you could see my human nature in its appearance, which is now refulgent, you would see that refulgence emanates from the countless wounds that like a garment of living purple covered my limbs, lacerated, exsanguinated, beaten, pierced for your sake. My human nature is now refulgent, but one day it was like that of a leper, so fiercely it had been struck and humiliated. The man God, who had in himself the perfection of physical handsomeness, being the Son of God and of the Immaculate Woman, to those who cast loving, curious, or scornful or evil glances at him, seemed a worm, as David says, the scorn of mankind, the jest of people. My love for my father and for my father's children led me to abandon my body to those who struck me, to offer my face to those who slapped me and spat at me, to those who thought they were doing a meritorious deed by tearing my hair and my beard, piercing my head with thorns, making the earth and its fruits accomplices of the tortures inflicted on their Savior, dislocating my limbs, laying bare my bones, tearing off my garments, thus offending my purity in the most cruel manner, nailing me to a piece of wood, and lifting me up like a slaughtered lamb onto the hooks of a butcher, and barking around me while I was in agony, like a pack of ravenous wolves made even wilder by the smell of blood. I was accused, condemned, killed, betrayed, disowned, sold. I was abandoned even by God, because I was burdened with the crimes I had taken upon myself. They made me poorer than a beggar spoiled by highwaymen, because they did not even leave me my tunic to cover my livid nakedness of a martyr. Even after my death I was not spared the insult of a wound and the slander of enemies. I was overwhelmed by all the dirt of your sins. I was hurled down as far as the bottom of the darkness of sorrow, deprived of the light of heaven that might reply to my dying eyes, and of the divine voice that might answer my last invocation. Isaiah explains the reason for so much grief. He has really taken our evils upon himself, and ours are the sorrows he has carried. Our sorrows. Yes, I carried them on your behalf, to relieve yours, to mitigate them, to cancel them. Had you been faithful to me, but you did not want to be so. And what did I gain by it? You looked at me as if I were a leper, one struck by God. Yes, the leprosy of your infinite sins was upon me. It was on me like a garment of penance, like a cilice. But how did you not see God shine forth in his infinite love from that garment worn on his holiness, on your behalf? He was wounded through our wickedness and pierced through our crimes, says Isaiah, who with his prophetic eyes saw that the Son of Man had become one huge sore to heal those of men, if they had only bruised my body. But what you most wounded was my feelings and spirit. You made a laughingstock and butt of both, and you struck me in the friendship that I had given you, through Judas, in the loyalty that I hoped to receive from you, through Peter who disowned me, in the gratitude for my favors, through those who shouted at me, "Death to him," after I had cured them from so many diseases, through love, because of the torture inflicted on my mother, through religion, calling me a blasphemer of God, whereas out of zeal for the cause of God I had put myself in the hands of men by becoming incarnate, suffering throughout my life and surrendering to human ferocity without uttering a word or complaining. A glance would have been sufficient to incinerate accusers, judges, and executioners. But I had come spontaneously to accomplish the sacrifice, and like a lamb, because I was the Lamb of God, and I shall be so forever, I allowed men to take me to be stripped and killed, so that I might make a life for you of my flesh. When I was lifted up, I was already consumed by suffering with no name, with all the names. I began to die at Bethlehem, seeing the light of the earth so distressingly different for me, who was the living being in heaven. I continued to die in poverty, in exile, in flight, in work, in incomprehension, in fatigue, in betrayal, in torn affections, in torture, in falsehood, and blasphemy. I had come to reunite man to God, and that is what man gave me. Mary, look at your Savior. He's not dressed in white, and his hair is not fair. His eyes are not the sapphire hue that you know. His garment is stained with blood. It is worn out and covered with dirt and spittle. His face is tumefied and twisted. His eyes are veiled with blood and tears, and he looks at you through the crust formed by them, and by the dust that makes his eyelids heavy. My hands, can you see them, are one big sore, and are awaiting for the last wounds. Look at me, little John, as your brother John looked at me. My footprints are stained with blood. Perspiration washes away the blood that drops from the wounds made by the scourges, and that is still left after the agony in the garden. Words come out of my parched, bruised lips in the painful panting of my heart that is already dying through all kinds of torture. From now on you will often see me like this. I am the King of Sorrows, and I will come in my regal dress to speak to you of my sorrow. Although you are in agony, follow me, as I am the merciful one. I shall be able to put also the scented honey of more serene contemplations before your lips, poisoned by my sorrow. But you must still prefer these ones, smeared with blood, because it is through them that you have the life, and you will be able to take the life to other people. Kiss my bleeding hand, and be vigilant when meditating on me, the Redeemer. I see Jesus as he describes himself. This evening I have really been in agony as from 1900 hours. It is 1:15 a.m. of the 11th by now. Jesus says to me this morning, the 11th February at 7:30, Yesterday evening I wanted to speak to you only of myself, a prey to suffering, because I have begun the description and visions of my sorrows. Yesterday evening it was the introduction, and you were so exhausted, my friend. But before the agony comes back again, I must reproach you gently. Yesterday morning you were selfish. You said to your spiritual father, Let us hope that I shall be able to hold out, because my fatigue is greater. No, his is greater, because it is hard and is not compensated by the bliss of seeing visions, and of having Jesus present as you have him, also in his holy human nature. Never be selfish, not even in the least things. A woman disciple, a little John, must be very humble and charitable, like her Jesus. And now come and stay with me. The flowers have appeared. The pruning time has come. The voice of the little turtle dove has been heard in the country, and they are the flowers that have come up in the pools of blood of your Christ. And he who will be cut off like a pruned branch is the Redeemer. And the voice of the turtle dove calling the bride to a sorrowful, holy wedding banquet is mine, for I love you. Rise and come, as today's Mass says, come to contemplate and suffer. It is the gift that I grant my beloved ones. 16th of March, 1945. There is a dead silence in the street. In so much silence, there is only the noise of a little fountain, the water of which falls into a stone basin. On the eastern side, along the walls of the houses, it is still dark, whereas on the other side of the tops of houses are beginning to grow white in the moonlight, and where the street widens out into a little square, the milky, silvery moonbeams shine on it, embellishing the stones and the earth of the street. But under the many archivolts linking one house to another, like drawbridges or buttresses supporting the old houses with very few openings on the streets, and which are now all locked and dark as if they had been abandoned, there is complete darkness, and the reddish light of the torch held by Simon becomes particularly bright and even more useful. In the red, mobile light, faces stand out in neat relief, and each shows a different mood. The most solemn and calm is Jesus, although tiredness makes it look older, furrowing it with wrinkles that are usually not there, and already showing the future image of his face recomposed in death. John, who is beside him, looks around at everything he can see with a surprised, sorrowful countenance. He looks like a child who has been terrorized by a story he has heard, or by a frightening promise, and implores help from someone who is more experienced than he is. But who can help him? Simon, who is on Jesus' other side, looks reserved, gloomy, like a man who is turning over dreadful thoughts in his mind, and he is the only one who, after Jesus, looks dignified. The others, in two groups that continuously change in formation, are all in a ferment, and now and again the hoarse voice of Peter and the baritone one of Thomas are raised, resounding strangely. They are then lowered as if they were afraid of what they say. They are discussing what is to be done, and some suggest one thing, some another, but all proposals are dropped, because the hour of darkness is really about to begin, and the opinions of men are obscure and confused. I should have been told earlier, says Peter worriedly. But no one has spoken, not even the Master. Never. He would never have told you. Brother, you do not seem to know him. I felt there was some trouble, and I said, let us go and die with him. Do you remember? But by our most holy God, if I had known that it was Judas of Simon, shouts Thomas in a thunderous, threatening voice. And what did you want to do? Asks Bartholomew. Me? I would do it even now if you helped me. What? Would you go and kill him? Where? No, I would take the Master away. It is easier. He would not come. I would not ask him whether he wants to come. I would abduct him as one abducts a woman. It would not be a wicked idea, says Peter, and he goes back impulsively. He joins the group of Alphaeus, 2 sons, who with Matthew and James are whispering to one another like conspirators. Listen, Thomas says that we should take Jesus away, all together. We could, from Gethsemane through Bethphage to Bethany, and from there to some other place. Shall we do that? Once he is in a safe place, we will come back and wipe out Judas. It is useless. The whole of Israel is a trap, says James of Alphaeus. And now it is about to go off. It was understandable. Too much hatred. Matthew, you make me angry. You had more courage when you were a sinner. Philip, tell us what you think. Philip, who is coming all alone and seems to be talking to himself, looks up and stops. Peter joins him and they whisper to each other. They then arrive at the previous group and Philip says, I would say that the temple is the best place. Are you mad? Shout the cousins Matthew and James. But it is there that they want him dead. Hush! How much clamor! I know what I'm saying. They will look for him everywhere, but not there. You and John have good friends among Annas' servants. A handsome present, and it is all settled. Believe me. The best place to hide one who is wanted is the jailer's house. I will not do it, says James of Zebedee, but listen also to what the others say. John, first of all, and if they should arrest him, I don't want to say that I am the traitor. I had not thought of that. So, Peter is at a loss. Well, I would say that it is compassionate to do the one thing, the only thing we can do. Take away his mother, says Judas of Alphaeus. Of course. But who will go? What shall we tell her? You should go as you are a relative of hers. I am staying with Jesus. It is my right. You can go. I have armed myself with a sword to die like Eleazar of Sarah. I will pass through legions to defend my Jesus, and I will strike without restraint. If I get killed by a more numerous force, it does not matter. I will have defended him, proclaims Peter. But are you really sure that it is the Iscariot? Philip asks Thaddeus. I am certain. None of us has the heart of a snake. He only. Matthew, go to Mary and tell her. I? Deceive her? See her beside we while she is unaware? And then? Ah, no. I'm ready to die, but not to betray that dove. Their voices mingle in a whisper. Do you hear? Master, we love you, says Simon. I know. I am not in need of those words to know. And if they give peace to the Christ's heart, they wound his soul. Why, my Lord? They are words of love, of an entirely human love. Truly, in these 3 years I have done nothing, because you are even more human than at the first hour. This evening, all the filthiest ferments are rising in you, but it is not your fault. Save yourself, Jesus, says John, moaning. I am saving myself. Are you? Oh, my God, thank you. John looks like a flower that had withered through excessive heat and becomes fresh again, standing straight on its stem. I will tell the others. Where are we going? I am going to my death, you to faith. But did you not say just now that you were going to save yourself? The beloved apostle loses heart again. Yes, I am, in fact, saving myself. If I did not obey my Father, I would lose myself. I obey him, so I save myself. But do not weep so. You are not so brave as the disciples of that Greek philosopher of whom I spoke to you one day. They remained with their teacher who was dying, having taken a potion of hemlock, and they comforted him with their manly sorrow. You look like a little boy who has lost his father. And is it not so? What I am losing is more than the loss of a father. I am losing you. You are not losing me, because you will continue to love me. He is lost, who is separated from us by oblivion on the earth, and from God's judgment in the hereafter. But we shall never be separated, neither by this one or by that one. But John will not listen to reason. Simon comes closer to Jesus, and a low voice confides to him, Master, Simon Peter and I were hoping to do a good thing. But, since you know everything, tell me, within how many hours do you think you will be arrested? As soon as the moon is at the summit of her arc. Simon makes a gesture of grief and impatience, not to say of anger. Then it was all useless, Master. I will now tell you. You almost reproached Simon Peter and me for leaving you so alone these last days. But we were away on your behalf, for your sake. Peter, frightened by your words, came to me on Monday night while I was sleeping, and he said to me, You and I can trust you. You must do something for Jesus. Judas also said that he wants to attend it. Oh, Why did we not understand then? Why did you not say anything to us? But tell me, did you not tell anybody? Really? Perhaps you became aware of it only a few hours ago. I have always known about it, even before he became a disciple, and I tried in every way to send him away from me, so that his crime might not be perfect, both from the divine and human points of view. Those who want my death are the executioners of God. This disciple and friend of mine is also the traitor, the executioner of man, my first executioner, because he has already killed me through the effort of having him beside me at the table, and having to protect him by myself against you. And does no one know? John does. I told him at the end of the supper. But what have you done? And what about Lazarus? Does Lazarus really not know anything? We went to him today, because he came early in the morning, and he offered his sacrifice, and went back without even stopping at his mansion or going to the praetorium, because he always goes there, following a habit of his father. And as you are aware, Pilate is in town these days. Yes, they are all here. There is Rome, the new Zion, with Pilate. There is Israel, with Caiaphas and Herod. There is the whole of Israel, because Passover has gathered the children of this people at the foot of the altar of God. Have you seen Gamaliel? Yes, I have. Why are you asking me? I have to see him again tomorrow. Gamaliel is at Bethphage this evening, I know. When we arrive at Gethsemane, you will go to Gamaliel and say to him, you will shortly have the sign that you have been awaiting for 21 years. Nothing else. Then you will come back to your companions. But how do you know? Oh, my master, my poor master, who has not even the comfort of not being aware of deeds of other people? You are right. The comfort of not knowing. Poor master, because evil deeds are more numerous than good ones, but I see also the good ones, and I rejoice at them. Then you know that, Simon, it is the hour of my passion. To make it more complete, the Father is withdrawing his light from me. As it gets nearer, before long I shall have but darkness, and the contemplation of what is darkness, that is, all the sins of men. You cannot understand. Nobody except who will be called by God for this special mission will understand this passion, in the great passion. And as man is material, even in loving and meditating, there will be he who will weep and suffer because of the scourging and the torture of the Redeemer. But this spiritual torture, that, believe me, you who are listening to me, is the most atrocious one, will not be measured. So speak, Simon. Guide me along the paths where your friendship went for my sake, because I am a poor man who is becoming blind, and sees ghosts, not real things. John embraces him and asks, What? Can you no longer see your John? I can see you, but the ghosts rise from the fogs of Satan, visions of nightmares and sorrows. This evening we are all enveloped in this hellish miasma. It is striving to create cowardice, disobedience, and sorrow in me. It will create disappointment and fear in you. In other people who are neither fearful nor criminal, it will bring about delinquency and fear. In others who already belong to Satan, it will give rise to supernatural perversion. I am saying so because their perfection in evil will be such as to exceed human possibilities, and achieve the perfection which is always in the supernatural. Speak up, Simon. Yes, as from Tuesday we have done nothing but go around to find out, to prevent, to look for help. And what have you been able to do? Nothing, or very little, and that little will be nothing when fear paralyzes your hearts. I became irritated also with Lazarus. It is the first time that it happens to me. I was irritated because he seems to be slothful. He could take action. He is a friend of the governor. He is always Theophilus' son. But Lazarus rejected every proposal of mine. I left him shouting at him, I think that you are the friend of whom the Master speaks. You fill me with horror. And I did not want to go back to him any more. But this morning he sent for me and said, Can you still believe that I am the traitor? I had already seen Gamaliel and Joseph and Chuza, Nicodemus and Manaen, and finally your brother Joseph, and I could no longer believe that. I said to him, Forgive me, Lazarus, but I feel that my mind is more deranged now than when I was condemned myself. And it is so, Master. I am no longer myself. But why are you smiling? Because that confirms what I said just now. The fog of Satan envelops and upset you. What did Lazarus say in reply? He said, I understand you. Come today with Nicodemus. I must see you. And I went, while Peter went to the Galileans, because your brother, who is so far away, is more informed than we are. He says that he was informed by chance, speaking to an old friend of Alphaeus and Joseph, a Galilean who lives near the market. Oh, yes, a great friend of the family. He is there with Simon and the women. There is also the family from Cana. I have seen Simon. Well, Joseph was told by this friend of his, who is also a friend of one of the temple, who has become his relative on women's side, that they have decided to arrest you. And he said to Peter, I have always opposed him, but I did out of love, and while he was still strong. But now that he's become like a child and is a prey to his enemies, I, a relative who has always loved him, am with him. It's my duty, my blood, and by love. Jesus smiled, showing for a moment the serene face of joyful hours. And Joseph said to Peter, the Pharisees of Galilee are wicked like all the Pharisees, but Galilee is not all Pharisees, and many Galileans are here who love him. Let us go and tell them to gather together to defend him. We have nothing but knives, but also clubs are weapons when they are handled properly, and if the Roman troops do not come, we will soon get the better of those cowardly cads of the temple guards. And Peter went with him. In the meantime I went to Lazarus with Nicodemus. We had decided to convince Lazarus to come with us and to open his house to be with you. He said to us, I must obey Jesus and remain here, to suffer twice as much. Is it true? It is true. I gave him that order. But he gave me the swords. They belong to him. One for me, the other for Peter. Chusa also wanted to give me some swords. But what is the use of 2 bits of steel against the whole world? Chusa cannot believe that what you say is true. He swears that he knows nothing, and that at the court they think of nothing but enjoying feasts, a revelry as usual. So much so that he told Johanna to retire to one of their houses in Judea. But Johanna wants to remain here, clothed in her mansion, as if she were not there. But she will not go away. Plautina, Anne, Nike, and 2 Roman ladies of Claudius' household are staying with her. They weep, pray, and make innocents pray. But it is no time for prayers. It is time for blood. I feel the zealot becoming alive in me, and I am eager to kill and revenge. Simon, if I had wanted you to die as a damned soul, I would not have freed you from your desolation. Jesus is very severe. Oh, forgive me, Master, forgive me. I am like an inebriated, raving man. And what does Manaen say? Manaen says that it cannot be true, and if it were, that he would follow you to the scaffold. How you all rely on yourselves. How much pride there is in a man. And what about Nicodemus and Joseph? What do they know? Nothing more than I do. Some time ago in a meeting, Joseph was angry with the Sanhedrin, because he called them killers, as they wanted to kill an innocent. And he said, everything is illegal in here. He is right when he says that there is abomination in the house of the Lord. This altar is to be destroyed, because it has been profaned. They did not stone him, because he is Joseph. But since then, they have kept him in the dark about everything. Only Gamaliel and Nicodemus have remained friendly with him. But the former does not speak, and the latter, neither he nor Joseph have been summoned any more to the Sanhedrin for the really important decisions. It meets illegally here and there at different hours, for fear of them and of Rome. Ah, I was forgetting. The shepherds. They are with the Galileans as well, but we are few. If Lazarus had only listened to us and had come to the praetor, but he would not listen to us. That is what we have done. Much and nothing. And I feel so depressed that I should like to go around the country howling like a jackal, becoming brutal in an orgy, killing like a highwayman, if only to get rid of this idea that everything is useless, as Lazarus said, as Joseph and Chusa and Mana and Gamaliel said. The zealot no longer seems himself. What did the rabbi say? He said, I do not know exactly what Caiaphas' purpose is, but I tell you that what you say is prophesied only for the Christ. And as I do not recognize the Christ in this prophet, I see no reason to be excited. A good man, a friend of God, will be killed, but of how many like him has Zion drunk the blood? And as we insisted on your divine nature, he stubbornly repeated, when I see the sign, I will believe, that he promised to abstain from voting for your death, and on the contrary, if possible, he will try to convince the others not to condemn you. That and nothing else. He does not believe. He will not believe, if only nothing happened till tomorrow. But you say it is not so. Oh, what shall we do? You will go to Lazarus, and you will try to take as many as possible with you, not only the apostles, but also the disciples that you will find wandering about the roads in the country. See if you can find the shepherds and order them to do so. The house in Bethany is more than ever the home in Bethany, the house of kind hospitality. Those who do not have the courage to face the hatred of a whole population ought to take shelter there and wait. We will not leave you. Do not part. Divided you would be nothing. United you will still be a power. Simon, promise me that. You are calm, loyal, you can speak to and influence even Peter, and you have a great obligation towards me. I am reminding you of it for the first time to make you obedient. Look, we are at the Kidron. From there you, a leper, climbed up towards me, and you departed cleansed. Give me that for what I gave you. Give the man what I gave man. I am the leper now. No, do not say that, say the 2 disciples moaning. It is so. Peter and my brothers will be the most depressed. My honest Peter will feel like a criminal, and will have no peace. And my brothers, they will not have the courage to look at their mother and at mine. I recommend them to you. And what about me, Lord? To whom shall I belong? Are you not thinking of me? Oh, my child, you are entrusted to your love. It is so strong that it will guide you as a mother. I give you neither order nor guide. I leave you on the waters of love. They are such a calm and deep river in you that they raise no doubt in me about your future. Simon, have you understood? Promise me. Do promise me. It is painful to see Jesus so distressed. He resumes, before the others come, oh, thank you. May you be blessed. They all gather together in a group. Let us part now. I am going farther up to pray. I want Peter, John, and James with me. You remain here, and if you should be overwhelmed, call us. And be not afraid. Not a single hair of your head will be hurt. Pray for me. Lay aside hatred and fear. It will only be a moment, and then it will be full joy. Smile, that I may have your smiles in my heart. And once again, thank you for everything, my friends. Goodbye. May the Lord not abandon you. Jesus parts from the apostles and goes ahead while Peter makes Simon give him the torch after the latter has lit it with some resinous dry twigs that burn, crackling on the edge of the olive grove, spreading a smell of juniper. It grieves me to see Thaddeus cast such an intense and sorrowful glance at Jesus that the latter turns round to see who has been looking at him. But Thaddeus hides behind Bartholomew, biting his lips to control himself. With his hand, Jesus makes a gesture which is of blessing and farewell at the same time, and goes on his way. The moon, now very high with her light, encircles his tall figure, and he seems to make it even taller, spiritualizing it, making his red garment brighter and his golden hair paler. Behind him, Peter, holding the torch, and Zebedee's 2 sons hasten their steps. They go on until they reach the edge of the first escarpment of the rustic amphitheater of the olive grove, the entrance to which is a small irregular plain, and the tiers of the several escarpments that rise up the mountain in groups of olive trees. Jesus then says, "Stop, wait for me here while I pray, but do not fall asleep. I may need you, and I ask you this out of charity. Pray, your master is very depressed." He is in fact already in a state of deep depression. He already seems overburdened by a weight. Where is now the virile Jesus who spoke to the crowds, handsome, strong, with eyes of a ruler, a calm smile, a beautiful, resonant voice? He already seems breathless. He is like one who has run or has wept. His voice is tired and exhausted. Sad, sad, sad. Peter replies on behalf of everybody, "Do not worry, Master. We will keep awake and pray. All you have to do is call us, and we will come." And Jesus leaves them, while the 3 stoop to gather leaves and twigs and light a little fire to keep them awake, and as a remedy against the dew that is beginning to fall plentifully. Turning his back to them, he walks eastwards so that the moon shines on his face. I see that a deep sorrow dilates his eyes. Even more, perhaps, it is the dark rings of tiredness that enlarge them, or it is the shadow of the eyebrows. I do not know. I know that his eyes are more open and deeper set. He climbs with his head lowered. Only now and again he raises it with a sigh, as if he had difficulty in doing so, and were panting. And then he casts his eyes that are so sad around the peaceful olive grove. He climbs up a few meters. He then goes around an escarpment that thus remains between him and the 3 apostles left further down. The escarpment, a few centimeters high at the beginning, rises continuously and is soon more than 2 meters high, so that it protects Jesus completely from being noticed by more or less discreet or friendly eyes. Jesus goes on as far as a huge rock that at a certain point blocks the path and has probably been put there to support the slope, that on one side descends more steeply, and bare as far as a desolate heap of ruins preceding the walls, beyond which is Jerusalem, and on the other rises with more escarpments and olive trees. An olive tree, all knots and twisted, dangles right above the huge rock. It looks like a bizarre question mark, placed there by nature to ask some questions. The leafy branches on the top of it answer the questions of the trunk, at times saying yes by bending towards the ground, at times no, swinging from left to right, in a light breeze which blows through the branches, and at times carries the smell of the earth, at times the bitterish scent of olive trees, at times the mixed perfumes of roses and lilies of the valley, that one wonders where it comes from. Beyond the little path and beneath it there are more olive trees, and one of them, just under the rock, that has survived although split by lightning or cleft by some other agent unknown to me of the original trunk, has made 2 trunks that have come up like the 2 strokes of a huge block letter V, with the foliage of one appearing on one side of the rock and that of the other on the other side, as if they wished to see or veil at the same time, or form a peaceful silvery gray base for the rock. Jesus stops there. He does not look at the town that is visible down there, all white in the moonlight. On the contrary, he turns his back to it and prays with his arms stretched out crosswise, his face towards the sky. I cannot see his face because it is in the shade, and the moon is almost perpendicular over his head. That is true, but there is also the thick foliage of the olive tree between him and the moon, that with difficulty filters through the leaves with tiny rings and needles of light in the perpetual movement. A long, fervent prayer. Now and again he sighs and utters a word more clearly. It is neither a psalm nor the Our Father. It is a prayer rising from his love and his need, a true conversation with his Father. I understand it through the few words I grasp. You know, I am your son. Everything, but help me. The hour has come. I no longer belong to the earth. Stop all need of help for your word. Make the man satisfy you as the Redeemer, as the word was obedient to you. As you wish, I ask you to have mercy on them. Will I save them? That is what I ask of you. This I want, that they be saved from the world, from the flesh, from the demon. May I make further requests? It is a fair question, Father, not for myself, for man who was created by you, and who wanted to soil also his soul. I will throw that dirt into my sorrow and into my blood, so that the incorruptible essence of the Spirit which is pleasing to you may be reinstated. And it is everywhere. He is the King this evening, in the royal palace and in houses, among soldiers and in the temple. The town is full of it, and it will be hell tomorrow. Jesus turns round. He leans with his back against the rock and folds his arms. He looks at Jerusalem. Jesus' face becomes sadder and sadder. He whispers, "She looks like snow, and she's all sin. And how many I cured in her. How much I spoke. Where are those who seemed loyal to me?" Jesus lowers his head and looks fixedly at the ground covered with short grass, shining with dew. But although his head is lowered, I understand that he is weeping, because some tears shine when falling from his face on the ground. He then raises his head. He unfolds his arms. He joins them, holding above his head, shaking them while they are so united. He then sets out. He goes back towards the three apostles, who are sitting around the little fire of twigs, and he finds them half asleep. Peter is leaning with his back against the tree trunk, and with his arm crossed on his chest, he nods in the first drowsiness of a profound sleep. James is sitting with his brother on a large root that emerges from the ground, and on which they have spread their mantles in order not to feel its ruggedness so much. But although they are not so comfortable as Peter, they are also dozing. James has rested his head on the shoulder of John, who has inclined his on the head of his brother, as if doziness had immobilized them in that posture. "Are you sleeping? Have you not been able to keep awake for 1 hour only? And I need your comfort and your prayers so much." The three wake up with a start, and are utterly confused. They rub their eyes, they murmur an excuse, blaming their poor digestion as the cause of their drowsiness. "It's the wine, the food. But it will soon be over. It was only a moment. We did not feel like speaking, and that made us fall asleep. But we will now pray in loud voices, and it will not happen again." "Yes, pray, and be on the alert, for your own sake as well." "Yes, Master, we will obey you."